Hello and welcome to Movie Buffs, a show that covers the best films of all time. I am your host, Shani B. You can find me on all the socials at It's Me, Shani B.
And I'm your other host, Cisco from Misfit Minded Media Reviews. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Misfit_Minded, on Twitter at Rampage_Misfit, and my website, misfitminded.com.
Yes. Today we're going a few decades back, all the way to 1979 to talk about The Warriors. Based on the novel by Saul Urich, written by Walter Hill and David Shaber, and directed by Walter Hill, and starring Michael Beck, James Remar, and Deborah Van Valkenburg.
Yeah.
Um, if you haven't seen it, it's about a street gang that must fight their way from the Bronx all the way to Coney Island, where their turf is, after being falsely accused of assassinating a respected rival gang leader. All right, there's a lot going on here. What did you think of this movie? What are your takes?
Yeah, I don't really have any takes, I don't think. It's pretty well respected, well liked movie. So
This is true.
um yeah, I'm in that boat as well. This is the first time I've seen it since I was like a kid. So that was interesting because um I remembered all of the set pieces basically, even though I had only seen it once. So I think that really speaks to just like the power of just like the images, and the
Hmm.
costumes especially. Um but definitely like picked up on so much more like as an adult, than when like my dad showed me. Like I was trying to think like when would have been like maybe they did a re-release version in like 2005, which I think you saw, right? Was that the version you saw?
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's
So that
right.
might have been like around the time that I saw it. But and I remember liking it okay, but just I wasn't at the age where I could fully like appreciate it like I did this time. So what
Totally.
about you?
Same, same. I had vaguely remembered mostly the costumes and the places that they
Yeah,
were,
exactly.
but this time rewatching it, I geeked out so fucking hard. I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
man, I need this move. I need another one of these
Yeah.
in LA. I need to cross all the neighborhoods. Like, just so fun and really like gritty and so many young actors. I am a huge Fanny Bee. I really liked it. I like to think of myself as an honorary warrior because I am from the coast. So I
Oh, there you
feel like
go.
my turf is the sea as well. I love the font. I think I've always liked the font. That I've always been
Oh,
really
yeah,
drawn
the
to this movie
graffiti.
because, yeah, that graffiti is so dope. The costumes, like, to your point, are amazing. Their leather vests, monocored leather vests, are so dope. I like how every gang is coordinated via costume, which is really fun. I mean, the baseball guys, I wish I saw more of them, even though
Yeah.
they have a good set piece. The overall guys and the roller skaters, amazing. I love the score, so good.
Mhm.
Just like the right kind of almost 80s leaning vibe, but we're not in the 80s yet, which I think is even cooler.
Right.
And I love the detail of that there's like a radio DJ who knows about this underground world and is
Yeah.
also, keeping the time for us. Yeah, this movie is, I think, better than maybe I was led to believe because people always were like, oh, it's just kind of like a movie about fighting and it's got really good combat in it, really good fight sequences, but nobody really talked about some of the nuances that, just like you, I think as an adult, I picked up on so much more this time around. Yeah, what pieces of filmmaking really stood out to you, or like what are some of those things that as an adult you can finally appreciate?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a cult movie in that respect. Just like
Hmm.
I don't think like critically or box office it did like amazing. I have to look into that more, but
Idiots, total
uh,
idiots.
but I think it's mostly just like the fans. Like my dad was like a huge fan. Like that's who showed it to me. And so I had like all the like it's like quotes like embedded into my brain basically.
Yes.
Can you dig it? And
Suckers, let's
yeah,
go.
Warriors come out to play, like all that, just classic lines. Yeah, and the radio thing I just wanted to shout out to that John Wick 4 did the same uh conceit basically
Yep.
in Paris with when they were chasing after him. So very influential movie still to this day that came out last year, so Um,
Yeah, yeah, he was crossing a city in a way too, and it's true, I was recognizing so many things and being like, "Oh my gosh, this is where they came from."
mhm. Yeah, and just like the I like the, the gang culture. Like, I think they did it, anytime that you can capture, like, an underground world, environment, characters. I think, this doesn't have a ton of story or character development necessarily, but
Mhm.
it really makes up for it just with like the vibes, basically. Like you said, the music, the
Yes.
settings, a little bit of action thrown in, a little bit of romance, like, and so then, when they walk off into the sunset at the end, like I was happy about it, basically. So yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like they don't need a lot of character development for these actors to really send a message with their bodies and with their choreography. You know, the way these guys move around each other and look at each other, I thought was really so powerful. And when the filmmaking takes too much space up, we lose some of that authentic, connective kind of material. And I really appreciated how like a lot of this was like sussing each other out, especially like the pieces when they run across some of the gangs that aren't like connected to the bigger, cooler gangs, like the orphans group, where
I
they
love
pick up.
that whole scene.
Yes,
That was amazing just because, like,
yes,
I like how there's this, like, class of gangs, like, you just think of them all in, like, the same tier, and then, like, yeah, the orphans come out and, they don't have the nice vests, they don't
nope,
have, like,
they're much dirtier.
yeah, dirty, like, shitty clothes, they look like they smell really bad, uh
Classic.
and yeah, and like they have this kind of ego though because of that, which again, they don't spell it out, but you can just tell based on the way that the actors are selling it, that the one guy's like, "Yeah, we made it in the paper," and he gives them the news clipping, like, so
Yeah,
you
he
can
holds it.
see, like, yeah, we're a big deal. Like, you don't think we know what's going on in this town? It was
So
so good the
good.
way, like, the acting in this movie, I think really does a lot, like, to like the directing and the acting, and all the like little pieces together like really make up, like, Walter Hill directed this, who, like, I
Hmm.
hadn't seen a ton of his filmography, so I can't really speak to that, but I have seen 48 Hours. That's a really good buddy cop movie.
Classic.
Red
Yep,
Heat has Arnold in it. I haven't seen that one yet, but,
that sounds cool.
I'm putting that on the list. Streets of Fire, was recently on Netflix for a while. I don't know if it's still on there, but really interested in
Hmm.
watching that now, after doing this episode. And then he wrote Aliens and Alien 3. That was, like, the big one where I
Yes.
was like, "Holy shit," like, I recognized the name from somewhere, but, I mean, just that right there, it puts you into a specific tier of writer director right there. I think.
Well,
Yeah.
exactly. You know, like he's a writer director, and so you would think that I guess like that he was maybe just an auteur, but that's what's kind of exciting about the fact that he's a writer director who also doesn't always direct what he writes.
Mhm.
You know, like sometimes he does, and sometimes he collaborates with a director who elevates it, or a director who people disagree with their choices, and he still gets out, I think,
Mhm.
scot free. But yeah, I think this one is such an interesting one to be based on a book, and it makes me really curious about like how deep the novel might get to go.
Mhm.
Because there is something about how like that orphan scene represents how like these are all lost children in a city trying to grasp at a kind of life, trying to grasp at an existence and feel like they belong and like they matter, and they do that through their gangs. But like you said, you know, there is a hierarchy of gangs that are, I guess, going to get respect. And that opening scene with all those
Oh,
guys
yeah.
is
Yeah, no,
amazing.
before CGI,
Amazing.
so, like, hundreds of dudes just, like, gathered together,
Wrangled up.
yeah, in
Yep.
this park or, like, this set that looks like a park,
Mm-hmm.
and, yeah, it like you said, it's, like, really amazing, just small thing, like, that you don't see anymore where it's like, man, they really had to get all those extras. They had to make costumes for all of them, like, to match, basically.
Yep.
And yeah, the different gangs, I think, makes this movie stand out for sure. Um, You
Yeah.
know, like
And the fact that
yeah.
there were only 9 of the gang, like only 9 gang members were in that group and it was so massive, and then there were still gangs that weren't invited was also like a wild thing to
Yeah,
realize.
because I think, Cyrus, who gets assassinated at the beginning, said RIP
He was
Cyrus.
a visionary. He was a total visionary for how
Um,
they were gonna steal the city from the cops. So dope.
yeah, doesn't he says there's, like, only 600 cops or something and 1,200 gangs or gang members, something like
Yeah, like thousands of
yeah,
us.
and so, which I don't know if that was true or not, but, the cops
I think it
yeah,
was.
probably, right? I mean, it felt authentic just what I know of, like, New York City around that time and just, like, how dirty
Mhm.
and, like, decrepit everything was and
So dangerous it
graffiti
was too.
yeah, and dangerous, so that, like, felt real to me. It didn't feel like, um, West Side Story, which is, like, something you could definitely, like, made me think about, and then in the research, I guess the authors, kind of wrote the story as kind of like a response to that because he felt like gangs were being, like, glorified, and
Yes.
he actually was, like, a social worker or, like, familiar within that field, and so, like, he
Wow.
based it on, like, the interactions he had, like, within his own work, experience, so
That is really interesting.
right?
That's cool.
Yeah. I thought
Yeah.
so too.
Yeah, this is a great response to West Side
I
Story
think
that,
so,
like, sort of
yeah.
takes those gangs and turns them into
It's a
something
different
something
genre though. It's
so
a
different.
in musicals, you can't really take anything like any of that serious. It's Shakespeare, so I get
Yep.
what he's saying though, that, like, it did become, like even, like, Greece has, like, the different gangs, and it became, like,
Mhm.
this very pop thing when, like, in reality, it's very punk and grunge and
Yes.
not the mainstream,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
counterculture.
So that you would have and so, honestly, I'll say it right now, my favorite scene, and this is probably, like this might be the hot take or whatever, is, like, when they're on
Mm.
the train on the subway and the prom couples come in.
I was gonna bring it
That
up.
scene was
Oh,
amazing. Like, again,
so
yeah,
powerful.
there's no dialogue needed, but it's just the way that, like, they're looking down on the gang, like, the warriors, like, "You're lower class than us,"
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
dirty compared
But
to
I'm like, "You're
us.
fucking riding the subway, like, bitch," like
Well, that's the wildest
Yeah,
thing to me is that, like, everybody had to still ride the subway,
yeah.
which was what is so scary. It's like, I can't believe people were like, "I'm just going to work and I have to take the subway." Like, there are gangs on here,
Yeah, I
there's,
guess,
like,
like,
dangerous shit,
in
but I have no choice.
Joker, it was, like, the same thing where,
Yep.
not prom guys, but it was, like, drunk bar dudes came on
Yep.
and, like, were,
Yep.
like, fucking with Arthur, in that movie, and yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, Subway is a crazy
In the
ass
'70s in
place.
New York, definitely not where you wanna be, probably.
No, absolutely not. But I love that scene too because there's a kind of juxtaposition of like kids your age, if they have access to more resources, if they have, maybe families that care more about them or whatever it is, this could be them. But instead, this is their life, covered in dirt,
Mhm,
surviving across the city, just trying to get to something they recognize. And like one of the guys is like, I've never been to the Bronx before. And I was like, oh, that's so wild to like live in a city that's like one city,
mhm.
even though there are all these boroughs, and to have never been to a part of it because you have to take the train and it's like an hour ride on the subway.
Right.
It's not like you can just like shoot uptown or whatever.
Yeah, like, they're looking at the map and, like, trying to figure out, like, how many stops it takes, like
Dude, it's
yeah.
so confusing.
Um
You get so lost
One of
so
the guys
easy
gives
and
him
there's so
shits
many
like
tunnels.
shit like, his math skills aren't up to date like that.
That's right. Yeah, he's still working on him.
Um,
But, like, that is the wildest thing to think of, like, they're venturing out for, like, what is the first time when they go on this crazy ride to try to get back, and they took this huge risk, and so did all of the gangs, but it's interesting to think, like, these kids they have been really, siloed in so many ways, and now when they come together, it's volatile, and it's, like,
and they are
exciting,
just
but
kids. I mean,
also
like,
Yep.
the actress who plays the sex worker, like, looks so young, like, baby face and young,
Yes, like a low key Angelina Jolie
like,
too, like
teenager.
giving me real
Like, I don't
vibes.
know how old she
Yes.
was, but just, like Yeah, just she looks so much
Classic.
younger than all of them, basically.
Mhm.
So that takes
And they
on
were pretty rough with her, but she held her own. She
they
really
were. I
did.
I was gonna bring that up, like, you could say that that's, like, what's aged somewhat the worst of this, along with, like, some of, like, homophobia and stuff like that.
Of
Um,
course, yeah. Remar's character as a
yeah,
whole is just,
just
like, not
just
great.
walking red flag, but I actually like that he gets taken down by, like, the biggest red flag, which is a cop in a red top. Like, it was just,
Yes.
like, so
Yes.
obvious, like, okay, like, so it's like he was too far removed. Like, we're
Mhm.
all we have to be this level of tough to survive, and Remar's the
Yes.
guy that's, like, enjoying this shit, and so it's like, he gets punished for that. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
You're taking it too far, and,
Yeah, that was a
yeah,
really
that
cool
was
scene too,
that was
just
cool though.
because, thinking like, what the hell? Like when he rolls up on that lady, I was like, what the hell is this woman doing? She is
Oh, no, I
insane.
see, that's a scene I remember. I, like, knew right away.
Ah, I had forgotten
I
it.
was like, "Oh, that's a cop," and, like, even if I didn't, I feel like it was so obvious, like, "Oh, this
It's
super
something.
attractive lady is just sitting here on this park
In the
bench,
middle of the
like,
night.
hey guys, why don't you sit down on this bench next to me and chat?" Like, no way, fuck
Yeah, absolutely not.
that.
But yeah, he's a good example of how like there is a variety of type of guy in this gang. There's like the lead guy, Michael Beck,
Really
who is
good.
trying
I
to
thought he
do
was really
right to take
solid.
care of his guys. Yes,
Yeah.
so good. And there's a camaraderie, there's a kind of brotherhood, and it does feel like Remar's character's like not he's not there for the brotherhood or the safety of the group. He's there for the power he can use and abuse. And it does feel like that's like the other guy, Luther, the one who is the true assassin,
Mhm.
just an agent of chaos,
Yeah.
here to abuse the fact that he can do whatever he wants because they have that kind of
Yeah, we get the
freedom.
explanation at the end, "Why'd you do it?" And he's like, "Because I like doing shit like that."
What a
Speaking
fucking
of speaking of Joker, I mean, is that the most Joker answer that you
yes.
could come up with,
He even like had Arthur
Yes,
vibes too, like his
definitely.
that like look and everything.
Mhm.
Oh man. But yeah, like when I didn't remember that the one guy got tackled onto the train tracks with a cop. I forgot
Mm,
that he got thrown on the
yeah.
tracks. And so in real time, I was like, oh shit, how are they ever gonna hear the truth? Like who's gonna tell the truth now? And will they even believe it? I really only remembered some images. I did not recall a lot of these pieces, so I feel like I was like really alive watching this because it's really visceral. It's a real visceral movie.
No, and that's what I'm saying, like, that's why I think I remember it because it wasn't like I wouldn't have said, like, when I was a kid, like, "This is one of my favorite movies," or whatever, like, it's just, like, one I saw once, but
Right.
it
Yeah,
just gets
obligatorily.
yeah, it just gets stuck in your head, like, through maybe that's through pop culture too, because this has lived on through video games. There was a video game that came out when I was a kid
Oh,
that was
did
awesome.
you play?
Yeah, I think so. I think I remember playing a little bit. That's actually a
Nice.
game too because it's a Rockstar game, which makes the Grand Theft Autos, so, like,
Classic.
but that, people want to get remastered, like, they're asking Rockstar
They
to
should.
actively, like, remake it, and I would love to see that, honestly, because
They
this is
should.
such
Yeah.
a great setup for a video game too. It's like
Epic.
every setting is a different level. You have the different characters of the gangs, like, that would be
Mhm.
picking your own gang to play with, like, dude, that shit would be so good, like, so fun.
And it's exactly Rockstar. Like that
Yeah.
is I feel like that's their whole thing. So I would love that because I don't think I want them to remake this. Like when I was watching it, I was like, this should really
Oh,
stand as it
absolutely not. I mean,
is.
did you hear they're
It would
remaking
be
American Psycho? Are they thinking about it? Like,
no.
isn't that
Fuck.
one that, like, would be impossible to remake today too? Like, it's just
I just don't know why you would
I
want to. It's
know.
like almost perfect, I feel like. I
Yeah.
know that's a weird thing to say about American Psycho because it's a
It's
wild ass
great
movie,
though.
but it's so good. How
Yeah.
no, no,
The
no,
only
no.
thing that kind of, like, made me a little bit excited was someone was like, if someone is gonna play the new, Christian Bale part, it should be Glenn Howerton from Always Sunny, and I was like, "Okay, alright,
Yeah,
I
I'd like to
would see
see
that."
a kind of I'll go for a companion piece, something
Yeah.
that's like a modern version of it, but not quite a remake because I think that's what I was thinking too, is I was like, I want to see this same kind of thing done again in like LA or Chicago or some other notorious city that has such different neighborhoods with different qualities that you can work with, because I think that it also represents how New York has always been known as the melting pot city, right? Like city where there are so many people who are so different from each other that somehow coexist. And this movie is like a great reminder of like, well, there's maybe some kind of treaty in place, and if the treaty's not in place, that coexistence is not happening anymore. Um,
I do
I
think,
love
like,
when
the Coney
they're
Island setting, though, is, like, the time and place is perfect. Like, the time
yes,
they picked, the
Coney
place
Island's
they
amazing.
picked, the gang culture at the time felt very authentic and
Yes,
real, like, so I do think, like, that's a whole other character, which I know is a cliche, but it does bring so much to the story where there
yes.
is no really, crazy, um, complex story to it.
Yeah, you don't need it, right?
Yeah.
Because the city itself sort of tells you all you need to know about why these guys are the way they are. And I love when they're trying to make their way to the platform and they see the like bald gang roll by in their school bus.
Mhm.
And they're like, do you think these guys are still recognizing the treaty? And, then they turn around, they're like,
Yeah.
they're absolutely not. And they fucking like, they're running so fast through the city too. It like feels so alive in their performances in that way, and I just am like obsessed with the fact that it's an all in one night story. And like all night, they're just like so alone on the streets because it's too dangerous at night in New York. Like it's a city that never sleeps for sure. But when it's not sleeping, I wouldn't say it's exactly safe. Like the smart, safe people are sleeping.
The city that
It's
never
the other
sleeps
folks.
because they're all on crack, basically, in this
That too. Yeah, that too.
they're
Oh
all
my
on
gosh.
drugs,
Yep. Yep.
yeah, and other things, but yeah, and then the actors, like we said, the other actors, just to mention them, James Remar as
Hmm.
Ajax,
Always so good at being a piece of shit
yes, I
asshole. Like,
know.
so good at it.
I know, and then I always think of him as, like, doesn't he play, like, Dexter's dad in Dexter too, I think? So
Yeah,
it's like
he plays his, like, stepdad or
stepdad.
whatever, the guy that saves him,
But, again,
but
walking that
a
line of,
good
like, "I'll
psycho,
teach you how to kill, but in a justified
but
way."
for
Yeah.
good. Right.
So there's still some evil behind there, and
Yes.
then Dave
And he
yeah.
was supposed to be in Aliens. He was supposed to
Oh,
be,
okay.
the lead character in Aliens, but he got in trouble with drugs,
X or
unfortunately,
whatever?
and yeah,
Yeah,
had to leave the project. But that
interesting.
surprised me because I was thinking that's another
He would
Walter
definitely be
Hill.
able to I
Uh,
mean, that's like a gang movie in itself, to be honest, like a
yes.
Marine gang,
Right,
so
but a gang nonetheless.
and then, David Patrick Kelly, who, like, has played a villain in, like, a million
Just
different
a
things too,
psycho,
um
horrifying guy.
his top IMDb, performances, Twin Peaks, The Crow.
Yes,
So,
of course,
again,
of course.
anytime where there can be, like, a villain inserted or just, like, a smarmy, like, asshole guy, that guy
Yep,
will
and
show up.
and like an elevated monster,
Yeah.
like he is almost like a nightmare come to life, with some of the looks that this guy can get on his face and the tone of voice, and when he's like clanking the bottles together
Yeah.
on his fingers, like
Which
just
I
the
guess was
details, the little
improvised,
details.
in the research,
Of course it
which,
was.
like
Magic.
yeah, because like and that's, like, whenever there's, like, a really iconic, like, improvised line or something and, like, no one responds to it, I feel like that I always am more apt to believe it,
Yeah.
like, when Pacino did the, like, "She's got a great ass" in Heat, that was improvised, and if you go back and look at that scene now, you just see, like, all the other actors being like, "Holy shit," like, he's really going for it.
Yes.
Mainly Frank Azaria, like, he looks like, "Whoa," like, this guy really turned. Because I guess that was, like, the 90th take, and Al Pacino was just like, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna go, like, full
I can't
100.
take it anymore.
Great
Yep.
ass!" And, like, that's the take they use.
I mean, like, that's exactly it. You just like in the filmmaking process, you need that collaboration of an actor who is just gonna find something really human inside of the person they're playing. And this movie, shockingly, each of these guys and the women characters find a way. Like, I love the women's gang and the way that they totally like
Yes.
have a
The
whole
Lizzies,
plan
the
for
Lizzies.
luring them in. I was like, dudes, it's pretty on the nose with it, but that's okay with me. That's okay with me. And I love how like right before they're like, we got to come to this part of town more often. And it's like, no,
Well, I
no,
remember
never leave your
that's another scene
safety.
I remember. I remember, like, and that one's pretty obvious too that they're gonna get double crossed because it's like nothing's good
Hmm.
has happened to them in this point, and all of a sudden this gang of pretty ladies is like, "Why don't you come party with us?" And it's
Exactly.
like, all right," and like I like the one guy who's not. He has that feeling like I'm just gonna sit
Yeah.
because something's not adding up here. Like, and like and they're all treating him like he's such a buzzkill, like, "Come on, man, like, stay a little
Hmm.
longer," and then he ends up being right. I'm like, he honestly, he could have done an "I told you so" after that. I was kinda waiting for that, but,
He could
but
have.
they just ran off together, but, like, I definitely would've been like, "See? Like, I told you guys
He was
to."
always trying to, like,
Get to
have
the
his brother's
station, yeah.
backs. Yeah, we'll always get to the station, he didn't want them to worry about each other, and he was like, "We should go back," when Remar was with the woman, like, just in case something isn't right there. Like, he always had a feeling that they only have each other here, and I like that too because I think that's what all the other gangs were showing them each time they came upon them. And especially with the Lizzies, of course, they only had their own backs. It's just easy to tempt these young teen guys or, like young men who haven't seen any girls like this because they're confined to their own neighborhood.
Yeah, and it's like, these are survivalists, like they just literally take what they can get. So like I kind of understood their side too of it, where it's like, hey, we're not gonna like get another chance to party with ladies like all the time, like
That's true. Not a lot of women invite us
right.
in.
So it's like we're just gonna like take advantage of this, but I think Walter Hill, like as a director too, the one thing, and I noticed this about a lot of good action directors in the 70s and 80s too, that they're not Michael Bay and overly showy in
No.
their directing. Like a lot of these scenes take a lot of time to like build up. Like that party scene, for example, it does not like happen right away. There's like 5 minutes of them like dancing and making out and going from one girl to the next. Let me put this record on. Like it really like
Makes you feel just safe
yes,
enough.
exactly. And then it like they lock the door and you're like, okay, oh shit, now it's happening, they're packing. Oh no.
Yep. It's true,
Yeah.
like, the detail to the filmmaking, like, when, the guy who's taken over for Cyrus and his gang is getting information, and there's, like, a yellow light behind a dude in shadow
Mm.
giving the information, and, like, when they're walking down the subway track together and the light switches to red when they talk about something more important, like, those little details are so strong, and I think, like, like Michael Bay, he's gonna ram those down your throat rather than just, like, challenge you to see them, to notice that they're there and that they mean
Well, even
something.
like
And I think
I just found this in the research. Like, so
mm,
this movie with thousands of gang members or whatever that claims. What do you think the body
yep,
count of this movie is? If you had to take a guess,
like 10? It's pretty small.
16.
16. Okay,
So
I
I
was gonna say,
mean,
I feel like,
so our
yeah,
point
not that
of
many.
there's not a lot of people that die. Like when I was doing the like favorite kill thing, like I really had to like look and see like who all died because again, this is not they really make all the deaths count. Like and like draw like you feel something.
Yeah, like they're not killing just for
Yeah.
fun. They have to. It's the only way. It's like you or me kind of thing.
Well, and their leader, the leader of the warriors, gets killed at the beginning. Like
Yeah, straight away stomped. Holy
it
shit.
was, and I had
Holy
that's
shit.
one thing I had forgotten because that's like a very specific. But like I remember that guy's face. Like they all look very
Mhm.
distinctive too, which I like.
Mhm.
And but yeah, it just gets stomped out, and so then like there's this kind of like battle as like who's gonna be the new leader. Like Remar's like, why are we listening to you?
Yeah.
Just being an
Yeah, who made
asshole.
you?
Yeah, like
Of course. Yep.
and he always wants to fight, why are we running? I don't like how he and I do like that when they fight the baseball team that like he does finally get to fight. Like because he kept
Yep.
complaining about it the whole movie and he's like, "Can you keep going?" He's like, "No." He's like, "All right, good, because I'm sick of running." And then they just start fighting.
Yes,
Another
yes.
good line from this movie, yeah.
So many good lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, so because all of the lines mean something. They represent something in a meaningful way. And it's true, it's like such a crazy move to have that assassination take place and then for their leader to get stripped and for them to basically be trying to get home and figure out what they're gonna do. And I think like when I was thinking of kills, I found it to be most shocking when the one guy I thought was the only one that might know the truth was just thrown onto the subway. I was like,
Oh my, and
fuck, we
it took
are
me so
really
long for
screwed.
some reason he's not on the IMDb cast list, which is like very surprising. That
It's
actor, um,
Yeah, he's in The Thing. I
yeah,
recognized him from The
I was
Thing.
just gonna say,
Yeah.
I was like, I know this guy from somewhere. Where the hell? And I
Mhm.
couldn't find him on IMDb, and then I had to like Google it, and then finally I was
So
like, The
weird.
Thing. Oh my god, yes! Like I've seen that movie a
There he
million
is.
times. You know, he's in. Isn't he the one that turns in the interrogation scene when they're all like,
I'm not sure if it is him because he's the, like, cook or something,
okay,
and so
but
he's,
he
like,
is
very
tied up
meek the
though.
whole
He is
time.
tied up. Like that's what I
For
remember for
sure.
sure. Like when they're,
I'm just gonna have to rewatch
I
it.
know,
It's one of
right?
my favorite
Nope.
movies.
I
I'll
guess
just
we're
go ahead
gonna.
and rewatch it. No worries. But, like, I liked him being in this story too because I think he was another reminder that, like, the Warriors are not they're not brutes. They're good guys.
Yeah.
Like, he is a softer kind of guy. That doesn't mean he can't fight per se, but it means that, like, these guys don't turn to violence immediately. It's a necessity for them,
Mhm.
a survival tool.
Yeah. No, and I like that they're mixed race. I think that's like interesting choice too. Even
Yep.
though like I
Yeah, I
guess
was surprised there wasn't, like, a hardcore racist one. Like, I was waiting
they
for
had
the
the
racist
skinhead
gang to
group,
come through.
which like I don't know if they
Yeah, those
were,
bald guys.
they were
They
just
were mixed
calling them
race too,
that.
though.
Oh, okay.
That's
I
why I
guess
was
that's
like, I
right.
guess they're just a bald gang. It was like, "Oh, are you bald? We'll band
Yeah,
together and
they do
protect
call
each
them
other."
skinheads at one point, but that could have just been like trying to make fun of them or whatever. But yeah, I guess Walter Hill wanted an all black gang to be the Warriors, but the producers weren't having it. You know, to be honest, this is
Classic producers.
1979. You have to, you know, to take it like how it is. But I mean,
Yep.
given those circumstances, which are unfortunate, I do think all the cast really sell it, really solid. Like
Yep.
the lead guy, in particular, like Michael Beck, you know, I haven't really
Mhm.
seen him in anything else that I can really think of,
Same.
but he definitely, like, if you were going for a strong and silent type, like he is literally the
So
strong.
much in his
He's
eyes.
just dude with a vest who barely talks. It's like, and then anytime, you know, like, because he starts to have this relationship throughout, which is basically like the only human connection you get with Mercy,
Mhm.
who is this sex
Yeah,
worker,
both of them. Yep.
and any time that she wants to like have a moment with him, he will like cave for like 2 seconds and then be like, "No, no," like, yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
get strong again.
gotta keep going, like, or whatever, and like make fun of her, and yeah, but I do like, I mean, for 1979, like we can talk about that, like, and how they treat the sex worker though. I think it was like really surprisingly aged well, like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, not as bad as I was ready for.
because like at first, you know, Swan is pretty shitty to her, like, and everyone, you know, like we said, you know, like,
Yeah.
he calls her a whore like right at the beginning. uh,
And he tells her that they should probably run a train on her and she would like it. And I was like,
um,
"Oh my god, where are we going with this?"
or
But we
why don't you
don't
just
yeah,
tie a
we get that
mattress to your
moment.
back? That was another one. Like,
A very good one. But I do feel like it's strange, but that moment when he puts his hands down between her legs, but then rips her skirt to make the Molotov
yeah,
cocktail,
yep,
I feel like is like a great reminder of like the push and pull between like trusting each other, even though it'd be easy for him to be a brute and for her to be a sex worker. Like it'd be easy to just be subjugated to those two types of
yeah.
people, but we're actually more complex. We have a greater plan.
Mhm.
I don't need to just get between those legs. I need to blow these guys up,
Yeah.
you know?
And I mean, a lot of these action movies, because they're so fast paced, there's no time for kind of relation. We saw that last week with Payback. Like as soon as Gibson
Yes.
gets one scene, you know, I have to
It's
finish.
back
I
to
have to
it.
finish my mission, and then we can. And oddly, kind of end the same though. With, you know, going off into the sunset with your chick. I
Mhm.
mean, I was like, okay, like
Yeah, getting a chance at
that
it.
was pretty good, because again, you never know. Some of these are, especially in the 70s, are a lot darker, end on a
Yes.
very sour note, you know,
Yeah,
pessimistic
like when
note.
they got separated, I thought for sure none of them would ever see each other again.
Mhm.
So I was really excited when they would happen upon each other again and find each other. And I was like, nice. And to your point, at the end, I was like, oh, wow. Okay. So only two warriors down. Like we didn't even
Yeah.
really. they didn't all get killed and it was just the main guy in the end, you
And
know?
one arrested, 2 down, 1 arrested, 2 killed, 1 arrested. Yeah, I mean, that's not
Right,
and,
right.
like,
Not so bad.
and yeah, the DJ says, I like and I just like how she's, like, phrases things, it's not like she's not saying,
She's
like,
very cool.
"Kill the Warriors." She's, like, putting it in a DJ voice, so when they
Yes,
beat the
yes.
baseball team group, she's like, "The odds are against the Warriors, but it looks like the Furies made an error."
Yes,
Like, using, like,
yes.
sports terminology, I was like, "Okay, that's you can't deny that that's pretty cool," and, like,
Very
just the
smart.
fact, she's broadcasting these messages through the radio, which would have been like probably the mass communication of the time. There's no cell phones.
Mhm.
Um,
And it has to be clever because, you
you
don't
can't
want
give it
to
up.
alert the
Yeah.
police to it.
Yeah,
Right,
the police really
right.
don't get a lot done in this, to be honest, which like I'm not sure if that's like a plot hole or like that's accurate to what it was like. But
I feel like it's
I think so
accurate.
too.
Yeah, yeah, I know that there was a big overhaul in New York City when they were like, "We're gonna make a push to try to change and, like, clean this place
Yeah.
up." But before that, I think it really
Because I mean
was a
there was
place where, like,
graffiti
why would you
everywhere and like, like
it was like RoboCop style,
yeah.
like, if you go out on the streets, you're gonna get murdered, so why would you become a cop, you
Exactly.
know?
That one cop does kill that guy though. That was I mean, jeez, I was not
Classic cop.
expecting and a lot of those action moments, I do like how he films action, like, when there is, like, a really powerful moment or, like, beat, like, whether that's, like, a punch or a throw or something like
Mhm.
that, it, like, slow-mos down, so you get to
Yes.
see, like, the full action of the stunt guy, like, the stunt guy gets rewarded for their
Yep.
work, and then you get to see it, and I have the new 4K from Arrow, and it looked fucking
Oh,
amazing, and it
dope.
can't. So this is the actual like disc, 4K disc, and then it came in this like locker like thing.
Ooh,
So
that's pretty
like
sick.
graffitied lock like subway, like front.
Yes.
So
Yep.
yeah, it looked like really great. I was really impressed
It
with the
deserves it.
transfer of it, and it came with the 2005. So the one that you watched, it had those like transitions, right, with the comic panels or whatever. Is that the one that you watched or no?
Maybe I didn't see it.
Okay.
I remember those from when I was in school because I would have watched it the first time I would have watched it would have been in, like, '08. So they probably had us watch that one, but I just rented the one off of Amazon
Oh,
this
okay.
time, so I don't know which one that one
I think
is.
well, I sent you the link,
Um,
and like I think the link that I had that link was the remastered. Basically, they just added like new technology, like so like instead of the wipes, it was like comic book panels, kind of, and like animated them to look like
okay.
Scanner Darkly, like animated characters,
Style, okay.
just for
Mhm,
like a second. I really like I just watched the theatrical version. I really
mhm.
like the transitions, the fades, the wipes, like
Me too.
that's a very old style of filmmaking that we don't see anymore.
I
But
like it.
again, I think it's in Star Wars, it's in a lot of these classic movies
Mhm.
where you need to represent that okay, we're transitioning to the next scene really fast. Like we want to keep this momentum going, swish, like and it goes to the
Yep.
next scene. Like, yeah, it
It's
works. It
true,
works.
it's alive.
Yeah.
Mhm, I agree, I agree. I do have to check out those panels though, because now I gotta go try to find that remastered version so I can see what they look like. But yeah,
Yeah.
I like that too. I like the character of this film overall and just how, like, it is a real it's so connected. I think those transitions interestingly connect the momentum of how each of these are headed somewhere.
Hmm.
But there are these things that interrupt, and when they interrupt, the setting kind of changes. I liked that about how the action was captured too, like just putting the camera in a place where it's gonna explode.
Hmm.
Like when he flies through the door, it's inside the stall
Oh
already
yeah.
instead of just like showing him go through, Just smartly placing the camera where it'll be best to see the stunt rather than trying to make the stunt happen with the
Or just
filmmaking.
like, like you talked about the lighting. I also like how the DJ lady is lit. You never even see her
Yes,
full face, which I kind of felt bad for her, but I'm hoping that she realizes like that was for the effect and that her
for sure.
character lives on. Like that is such an iconic like because you only
Yes.
see her mouth and the microphone in which she's speaking to. And like and when
Mhm.
she starts playing like records on the radio. So But yeah, there's got like a red background, very dark, and like she's like, whispering into the
So cool.
radio and just yeah, cool. Um, yeah, definitely. And like, yeah, the way everything's lit and shot, you get like the park area, you get, the club that or the Lizzies take them to, like that bar area,
Yes,
the subway
yes.
station. Like they keep having to catch trains. So like that right there is like,
So cool.
just inherently we know if they make the train, they can probably escape the cops.
Yep.
And then like I did remember, like I did forget that too, where I was like, why don't they just take the train back to Coney Island and then they burn
The
yeah,
fire.
they start a fire and I was like, okay, all right, they covered it, they covered it. So they had to
And
like
also,
take the
like,
streets.
the subway
Yeah,
is one of those things where, like, it's much more reliable today,
yeah,
but it is one of those things where, like, sometimes a train just isn't on schedule, or
late,
it's made an unscheduled
yeah,
stop, or it decided to go express on you out of nowhere, and, like, they're having to, like, map this thing out while they try to get back, and it was kind of funny to think of, like, shooting at night is really, really hard
yeah.
in the 70s. There's not a lot of good opportunities, and they're just so smart about making sure that the important sequences were in a place that is just authentically well
I
lit.
mean, and there
So
was
they
like
could support
and
that.
like the way it's shot too, like there was a really interesting like crane shot when they were I noticed when they were going from the top of the subway down the stairs. And so it just like
Yes.
it just like craned down. So you're just seeing like their full like transition
Yep.
down
Run
the
down.
subway. So yeah, a lot of interesting stuff.
Really thoughtful.
Yeah. Um and then for that one scene I did wanna mention too where they're with the prom couple, there's that one moment I really like too where she's about to, like, fix her hair, like, to try and make herself maybe look nicer or whatever, and he, like, stops her hand, and it's like, "No, like,
Yeah, you don't have
let
to.
them judge us, like, who gives a shit?"
Yeah, they don't know.
Yeah, so yeah, and they're just like I said, like, that was just, like, a really small detail, but, their relationship kind of grows in this organic way through their interactions, and then he picks up the flower that one of the prom guys, dropped,
Left.
and,
Yeah.
he doesn't make a huge romantic gesture out of it. She's like, "Why?" And he just says, "I don't like watching things go to waste." And it's like, again, that's all you need.
Yep. Yep.
Maybe, when they're not, like, under attack and, like, in risk of their lives that they can travel together. I also really like that line where, he's talking about he wants to get
She's
out,
like,
and she's like, "I
yep.
like
And
to
she's like, I
travel."
like to travel.
And he's immediately like, "Where have you been?" She's like, "Nowhere, but if I did, I probably would like it."
I think I would like it. Yeah, I think I would like it. Yeah,
So,
they're kind of the same in
yeah,
that
they
way.
are, they
You know,
are.
they do what they have to do, but they're more than
Yeah,
that.
because
And I think they see that in
she
each
tells
other.
him that when they're, like, running in the subway, like, through the
Mhm.
tunnels, like, basically being like, "What am I supposed to do?" Like,
Yeah, what are my
yeah,
choices?
like, it's you're acting like I want to do this, and it's like, maybe I do. Like, who gives a shit, Like
Yeah, yeah, I mean, who says that, it's not empowering to at least
Yeah.
make a choice, make my own money, like, all the most positive pieces of sex work.
Yeah, exactly, and, like, again, not all positive back then for sure, but,
No.
uh,
But, like, if you can find a way to empower yourself,
find
I
some
think that's what this
enjoyment in
story
it,
is
make some
about too.
money, yeah, I mean, yeah,
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah, you gotta do what you have to do to survive, and you only have so many choices. I think if you're like a boy, you gotta join a gang because you need people to have your back. It's easy for people to just attack
Well, and
you,
you still see
like, just
this day, this,
jump
like,
you.
sex shaming where, like, I don't know if you saw that teacher that that got fired because she had an OnlyFans or whatever. And it's
That's such
I know,
bullshit.
and it's like this debate or whatever, and it's like and people shaming this teacher and like, corrupting the kids. I'm like, why don't you be mad at the system where she gets paid so little as a teacher,
Mhm.
educating the future of this country. Yeah.
America, yeah.
And has to make an OnlyFans. Maybe we should be upset about that and not at this teacher who's just trying to survive. It's the
Also,
same fucking argument, like
and if you found her on OnlyFans, you were on OnlyFans.
right.
So, like,
Yeah.
we're not gonna talk about that
Yeah.
part? Like, come on.
So you put bread
It's
on
true.
her table, so, I mean, come on. Unless you, like, someone's I guess that you could, like, screenshot it or whatever, possibly, I don't know.
There is an interesting debate about that. I recently saw, Poor Things. I finally caught it,
Okay.
And there is an interesting debate about how, like, being a sex worker is a kind of empowering place, but there are always men who still want to control it. They want to
Yeah.
be in charge of, like, women's bodies. And I think that this character was sort of showing, like, they're not. Like, I'm not afraid of the orphans. I'm not afraid of you guys. You can be
Yeah.
as rough as you want. I'm still not that afraid because I'm like, I believe in myself enough and I'm empowered. And I do feel like that,
I mean, there's
in
some
this
kind
story
of,
too.
misogyny, you know, embedded in that where it's like, I can enjoy sex, but you can't, and you're
Exactly.
profiting off of it, so that's not right. You shouldn't have sex for that. And it's just like,
Why
again, I
not?
know, like, again, this teacher who should be making enough, more than enough as a teacher,
Yeah.
has to make second income some way, and she is doing
Mhm.
it on OnlyFans, like.
And I'm sure she makes even more money on OnlyFans than she would at school.
And I'll tell you a
So
secret, all
there's
this
that too.
publicity of people being outraged, it's gonna make her more money in the long run.
Let's go.
So
Let's go. Let's get her
so
a second
yeah, so
home.
she's probably breaking it in on OnlyFans right now because of all this free press, honestly, so
As she should
good for
be.
her.
She deserves
Good for
it.
her.
But yeah, yeah. When we watch a lot of movies in the past, you and I, sometimes we really the way women have been treated can age very poorly. And this is an interesting example of how it's still telling a
And
truth. It's
50
still
years old.
encapsulated
I
in
mean,
time.
I came into this expecting a lot worse, like.
Same.
I mean,
Same.
even,
I
like,
think that's
Taxi
what's so
Driver is
amazing
a few
about it.
years before this, you know what I mean? Like.
Mhm. Very different
Same
story.
location,
Um,
very different story, very different treatment of
yep.
women, so.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it was interesting that they were included across the board. Like there was an empowered woman in Mercy's character, but then also like the Lizzies coming together, representing that like it doesn't matter what decade we're in, there will always be women who are like, you're not in charge of me, and I'm gonna find other ladies that agree, and we'll take care of ourselves.
Yeah, I saw this TikTok and it was like, it was really it was, it's a happy video, but, like, the implications of it made me sad because it was like, it was a group of, girls that realized they were in an online video game, session, and it was all girls. And they
Okay.
all started geeking out and, like, damn near, like, crying because they were just like, "Oh, man,
It's just
no guy's
us.
gonna tell me to shut up and stop playing games," and, all this, like,
Yeah, no one's
derogatory
gonna fuck with
stuff,
me.
like, and it's again, like, that's
Mhm.
another guy-centered environment that women are not necessarily allowed into,
Yeah,
um
to occupy.
yeah, in that space, and so I was like, "Man, they shouldn't even have to feel like, that fucking sucks." That they
Exactly,
were like, "Now we can
exactly.
play and be ourselves," like, and one girl was like, "I don't even talk when I play online because of that," and I was like, "Oh, man,
Yeah, I don't want them to
that
know, right? I
sucks."
have to protect myself in this
Yeah.
way. It's true, it's true. So even though it's been, like, almost 50 years, there's a good example
I mean, a bunch of them. The
historically.
OnlyFans, the video game, like, there's it's
We've got
still
some
happening,
examples.
like, there's some of this that's still lingering.
Yep. I guess, like, every generation, I think, has to negotiate the
Mhm.
power dynamics or whatever, and I think that's what's interesting about when we go back and we watch different movies from different times, and we think about how it could happen then and it's happening today, and all we can really do is try our best not to ignore it, but when it ages well like this, it really makes me happy because it reminds me that, like, it doesn't matter if the loudest voices are still the pieces of shit, like,
Yeah.
there are great guys in the mix always. There are strong women who are unafraid in the mix
And
always.
even, like, last week too, I mean, like, that one wasn't as bad either, like, with the Blue
Nope.
character, like, there was some questions we had about it, but in the grand
She
scheme of
nailed it.
action movies, not as not as bad
No.
as would have thought.
And even our boy De Palma in Dress to Kill, having Nancy Allen be like a
Oh, yeah,
streetwise
true.
investing
Yeah.
sex worker, like there are always good examples of strong ladies like finding their way in a world that's male dominated.
Mhm.
And like this is one of those movies where I had completely forgotten about Mercy's character. I remembered there was a female gang, but I forgot that she like comes out on the street and calls
Yeah.
them out and then kind of like tags
I
along and sort of
remembered
forces her
her,
way
but I
in.
completely forgot she was a sex worker, and maybe that was because I was too young to understand that, because they don't,
Right,
like, just
right.
spell it out for you, like,
That's
they
true.
just.
Yeah, they're using a lot of
Yeah.
insinuation.
So, alright, now we gotta get out of here, so let's just wrap up here with what's your favorite stunt and kill here before we
I think the Molotov cocktail for reals blowing up the
Yeah.
car is my favorite stunt. I just love when stuff blows up for
Well, the way
real.
they
It
shot it
it
too,
makes
like you
me so
said, like,
happy.
reaching under and you're like, "Wait, what's going
Connected to an
on?" Like,
emotional moment.
yeah.
Mhm.
They're about to get it on in the street or like, what what's happening?
Yeah, like, what are they gonna do? And it's like, "Don't
Yeah.
worry. I brought this." I also love that it comes from a bottle he's been carrying around his neck the entire time.
Yeah.
It was a security kind of thing that you
Weapon.
had no idea was really there until
And they
this
were all
moment.
passing
So
it
I
along
definitely
with
love that.
each other, like, when Cyrus gets shot, how they were passing the gun, like, it was kind of the same type
Yes.
of editing, yeah.
Mhm. Very cool, very cool. And I think my favorite I guess my favorite kill I think is that initial assassination because it just is so shocking.
Mhm.
It's just you don't expect it to happen and the look on Luther's face when he's done it, that like crazy shot of him is really powerful. So I think that one just like rung out to me. That and the subway one where the cop throws the guy onto the tracks.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that really stick with me. What about you?
Yeah, I think for stunt, Molotov cocktails high up for me as well. Really, really great scene, and like they use it to run away. Basically, like you said, they're just trying to survive. They don't have to fight every time. They would exhaust themselves and probably die if they
Exactly.
did that. So they're being smart about it.
Exactly. Mhm.
I really like the bat fight. I guess I'll put that. I like, it looks cool the way that they have their makeup and like the pinstripe like Yankees kind of
So
outfits,
cool.
and then
Mhm.
they like kind of keep them because again, like they don't have any guns because of the initial meeting at the beginning, which they set up.
Mhm.
So they're kind of just using everything at their disposal, and so there's that one shot where he throws it at the cop's ankles, uh
Yes.
and sits in slow motion and the cop just does like a somersault and is just like just indisposed after that. And then
Yep,
I guess
yep.
that's kind of foreshadowing too, because then at the end, Swan throws the knife, so it's like he must be like a really good thrower, like you can kind of guess what kind of weapon he would use, and a real like his weapon of choice
Mhm.
would probably not be a gun, it'd be something you throw, maybe like yeah, that knife or I don't know.
The knife is it's such a clever stunt too.
Hmm.
It really is because you're sort of like, what is he gonna do? This guy has a gun, and it's like, how do you beat a gun? And it's you
Brought
beat
a
it by
knife
like
to a gunfight.
dodging and throwing. Yeah, like, and it's just interesting for it to be here. Like, just so many interesting choices where you're not
And it really, like,
expecting that
emasculates
kind of
him that
nuance.
he gets beaten by that,
Yes.
and, like, because his
Yes.
whole demeanor changes after that, where he's, like, holding his arm, and he's
Yeah,
like,
so
"Oh,
withering.
please."
Yes. Yes. And the other guys march up and they're like, "You guys are
Yeah.
cool." I
"We're
love
gonna
that.
stomp out
Love
these
that.
guys, like,
Yeah.
mercilessly."
Yeah, we're gonna kill
Yeah.
these guys, but you guys are free to go.
And they were, like, the Black
I
Panther
love
group,
that.
kind of, which I like, the
Yeah, they had
Rips.
that vibe. They were very
Yeah,
cool. Yeah.
and, my favorite
Mhm.
kill is gonna be, I'll split the difference with you if you pick the Cyrus one, which is also very cool, very powerful moment. I'll do the train, kill because it's so unexpected, forgot about it
Yes.
completely. They don't even, like, linger on it or even mention his character after that, like, except for
No.
where is everybody, but, like, they don't, like and then I think what doesn't want somebody say, like, a cop got him or I don't know, but they really don't linger on it that much, like, it's just like, this was the cost of getting to Coney Island, so,
Yeah, there's no room for grief here. We have to survive.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice. All right. All right. Well, I'm really glad we did this
Me
movie.
too.
It was such a good throwback and it was so fun to talk about as well. Just such a fan of
We've been on
this.
a 2 this
Um
is a 2-week hot streak for me. I'm really happy about these last 2, so we'll see moving
yeah.
forward.
I'm excited for what's going to
I
like I
know.
don't know what could live
I
up to this and
know.
come after, but
Hopefully, we keep this streak
we'll
up.
we'll find one. We'll find
Yeah.
one. Awesome. All right, that wraps it up for us. Let's remind the people where they can find us.
Yeah, get your fix and follow the show at We Stay Buff on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and Twitch at The Buffs. Follow me at Misfit_Minded on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, on Twitter at Rampage_Misfit, and my website, misfitminded.com.
Take us for a ride. Subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Please leave a review. 5 stars is the dream. And you can follow me on all the socials at It's Me, Shani B. All right. Thanks again for listening. We'll catch you next time for another edition of Movie Buffs. Stay buff. Warriors!
Sweet, sweet, sweet.